Welcome. Are you planning international removals of yourself, your belongings, and your pets to Spain? Every year, people move to Spain thinking the hardest part is the visa, and then maybe their dog can't travel, or they can't find a house, or their belongings arrive too early or too late. Well, tonight we're talking about how to stop that happening to you. Joining me is Anna Sosdian from Start Abroad, who has helped families relocate from the UK, the US, and many other places. And she's moved a lot herself, so she's got plenty of advice and experience to give. Tonight, then, we're recovering getting you and your belongings to Spain, moving your pets legally, timing your move properly, and if there's time, finding a rental property as well. We'll help you through so you can do the Spain thing too. You're very welcome to YouTooSpain. Zoom. We all want to be in that plane, don't we? Right, let's dive straight in and welcome Anna from Start Abroad. Hola, Anna.
Hola, how are you, Skatz? It's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. Great to have you on the show. It's always nice to have newcomers on and, a fresh face for our viewers to get advice from. So, yeah, lovely. And are you very well?
Yes, I'm doing great. Excited to speak more about all of these practical considerations when it comes to moving to Spain. It's something that we work on quite frequently. So hopefully we'll get into some juicy topics, helpful topics.
Absolutely, yes. And let's just get quickly onto the live chat. Nobody's said anything yet. I mean, there is a bit of a delay, so that's not unusual. And people will be joining us. Make sure when you join us, you give us a wave and a hello to make yourselves known. And if you're planning a move this year, type 2026 move in the chat or something like that. Right. We'll start with pets, shall we? I think that's the good place to start because I know from experience that if you're taking pets with you, planning and timing your move can almost depend entirely on how you do this. I know that's what it was like for us. If you've not got pets, by the way, and if you're watching this show as a video afterwards, then do use the chapter headings to scroll to whatever's relevant to you. So then, Anna, why is timing and booking your pet's move so important to this whole process?
Well, I suppose, first of all, we should just mention that for many people, pets are critical members of the family, right? We don't want to have them as an afterthought. And there are a lot of steps of the process. So we need to be really careful to time things appropriately, to plan things far enough in advance so you don't run into any hiccups. First of all, it's deciding how are you actually going to physically get your furry friend from your home to Spain. So there are options for this, of course. I mean, really, it's typically, if you're coming from the UK, it might be a ferry, could be your best option. I know you have some personal experience with this, Skatz, yourself. So perhaps that's going to be easiest because you don't have to worry with the kerfuffle of getting on a plane. But depending on where you are, perhaps a plane would be easier for you too. These are the two main routes. Or perhaps you don't want to have to be there in person dealing with the logistics yourself, in which case hiring a pet relocation company can remove some of the hassle from you. There are some companies that will handle all of the paperwork, provide a door-to-door service, for example, for you. So these are all options to consider, but ones that all have to be booked a good bit in advance.
Yes, we had a pet relocation company on the show. Oh, it was a couple of years ago now, and he was actually on the road at the time. He was in northern France, and he was on the way over and
with dogs in the back seat.
Yeah, he was, and he was just there in the cab and chatting to us. Fortunately, he had good reception from his phone, and
that is lucky.
Was saying, "Yeah, I'm right in the middle of a delivery route at the moment." So good personal experience there. Really
well,
nice
let's talk a little bit more about these other timing aspects, right? So the other part of moving a pet is got to be the paperwork. So first, there's your vaccinations and your microchip. These are the two critical things that you can work on far in advance when you are just preparing for your visa appointment, for example, or in the lead up to your approval. So this is when you need to get a microchip first that's going to be recognized in the EU, followed by your rabies vaccination. Your pet must have an up-to-date rabies vaccination in order to move, and it has to be after the microchip. So you can see how there's some sequencing of things that is important here as well. And then you need to plan and make sure that you have a vet who is qualified enough to fill out your animal health certificate. Not all vets are. So this is the other thing I always say. If you are thinking about a 2026 move right now, no matter when it is, even if it's going to be in December, 3 things to think about moving with your pet: microchip, rabies vaccine. Can your vet complete this paperwork, right? And then the timing of that health certificate, it needs to be within 10 days of your pet's arrival to the EU. One interesting thing of note here. So this is, post-Brexit. It used to be that you could get a pet passport in the UK and it would apply in the EU. It's no longer the case. So this is why we're talking about these health certificates being so important. Of note, there is some discussion at the moment that they might try to bring back pet passports that are valid across both countries.
Okay.
But as of right now, the timing of this is very unclear. So still to operate with the health certificate standing in mind.
The funny thing was, as we moved from Ireland, that's an EU country, even though it was after Brexit, but they didn't even check the pet passport. Unusually, they just,
Wow.
we even said, "Do you not want to see the pet passport? We've got them here," and they went, "No, you're all right."
Well, that's great.
Yeah, we'd spent so much time and effort getting these things and making sure that all the paperwork was there, and they just waved us through, So. But
Well, we love it when
can't
that
gamble.
happens, huh? That's what you want to hear, that you've prepared and prepared and prepared. Oh, and it's completely fine and it goes smoothly.
Yeah,
Even if some of that preparation wasn't entirely required. Much better than
Exactly.
the opposite anyway.
Yeah, you can't gamble on that happening, really. Can
No. Not with your dog or your cat. So these are really like the key timing aspects of the pet relocation process. When it comes to deciding on the method of travel as well, of course you have to think about the size of your pet, right? This is especially relevant if you're going to get on the plane. So how large is the pet? Usually the requirement is that they're going to be under 10 kilos, often under 8 kilos, including the carrier, if you want them to be under the seat in front of you in the plane. So it does depend on the airline. There might be specific dimensions even required for the carrier, a different weight limit, but this is what we would be looking at. Otherwise, they're going to have to be checked as baggage on your plane or sent separately on a different plane than what you are flying on, let's say with a pet relocation company, in which case they're typically on a cargo plane. So these are, if you're flying, you have these additional categories to think about. Can you have your animal under the seat in front of you? Can you check them as a kind of an oversized luggage, or are they going to have to go separately from you?
So you can take a 25, 30 kilo dog, but they have to go specially located. Yeah.
Exactly. And even then, there might be some restrictions. It depends on breed. And if you have a really large dog, well, we have to look at things like, what is the maximum crate size that the airline is even going to allow?
We had a problem with the weight of our dog, but it was only because when I was telling you before the show started, we broke down on the way into Spain once we'd got there in Bilbao, and we were trying to book a hotel to stay over while the car was being repaired, and I didn't realise that there were. When I was looking online to see which hotels, some of them say, yes, we take dogs. But I didn't know that they had a weight limit. So, I booked the first hotel and that was fine. But it wasn't until the grower said, okay, which hotel have you booked into? And he looked at it and he went, no, I think I'd better phone them up and see whether they take a dog this size, because this isn't a tiny dog. And he phoned up and they went, no, it's a 10 kilo limit. And then my wife took the dog for a walk, and he was trying to book more, and eventually booked one, and they said, yes, it's something like 15 kilo or something, and he said, how heavy is the dog? I went, Oh, I don't know. I think it's probably about that. That'll be fine. And it wasn't. Then my wife got back 15 minutes later and said, "No, 25 kilos." We went,
Oh
"Oh
no,
no!" So we had
Skatz.
to. We'd gone through about 4
Yeah,
hotels by
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
time, and that's why we had to go all the way back to Bilbao, which cost us 110
Mm,
euros in a taxi and a special taxi to put all of our stuff
of
and a dog in there.
of course, and a dog, of course, of
Yeah,
course.
and it was a brand new taxi as well. He'd only just bought it, and you know, the grower was saying to us, just be really careful. He's keep a good hold on the dog because he doesn't want dog hairs in there. He doesn't want the dog scratching anything, and
Oh, of
so it
course.
was just a brand new, lovely plush car. It was like, oh
It's
no,
like, don't
this
shed
is
in here, please. Don't, no hairs shall leave your body. Yes.
there's no instruction you can give a dog to say don't shed, is
I
there?
mean, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So,
You know,
anything else? Yeah, sorry.
oh, I was just going to say, one of the more interesting cases that we were helping a client with moving to Spain is they had two standard sized poodles. And of course, your poodle is like a leggy dog.
Mm,
So they're not too heavy, but they're
no,
not going to fit in a crate size that's accepted by nearly any airplane.
no, you can't fold them up, can you?
Right. So it was one of these interesting things where we did manage to find there are like these crate extenders you can get put on a standard crate so
Oh,
that it's not too large, just tall enough for your standard sized poodle to stand in there, with their head not quite brushing the top.
mm,
It's all kinds of interesting things depending on your dog,
mhm.
but yeah, you can usually find a way to make it work.
Yeah. I mean, we had a car which was supposed to be a seven-seater car. We took all of the five seats out of the back and we
Mhm.
put a big cage in there. It was padded with loads of cushions. It was just beautiful for our dog, and she was relatively comfortable all the way. Well, until we broke down, obviously. But then that gave us the problem of we couldn't take that in the taxi.
Of course, of
So
course.
we had to leave that in the car, and then we had to kind of pick it up on the way down. Oh no, I think we folded it up. Somehow we got that into the car the van that we eventually hired to take down there.
Oh, it sounds like
Oh,
she got the
anyway,
royal treatment.
yeah, yeah, she did. I mean, I told you the whole story. It
Yeah.
took me about 10 minutes before the show, but no, I don't want to waste everybody's time by telling you the whole story. But it was an experience.
Let me just mention a couple of other quick things about pets in case people are interested. So airlines do limit the number of pets per flight.
Oh yes.
So this is also not only for in cabin, but also if you're checking your pet as baggage. So this is one of the reasons why we really need to book these things far in advance. Typically, the way that you book is you will book your own ticket and then call up the airline immediately. Typically, pet bookings are made over the phone, but call them up immediately to make sure that there's availability and that you can get a pet reservation on your flight.
Hmm.
Um, you can typically transport up to 5 pets for non-commercial purposes. So if you have a whole bunch of animals you're moving together,
Hmm.
that's usually the limit. And if your pet is traveling separately from you, you want to be sure that they are going to arrive within 5 days um, of you. So you need to be traveling around the same time, even if not exactly on the same date.
Wow. So if you have problems with your flight, it gets delayed or something. It could be very worrying. And what
Oh,
happens
well,
if you're not there when they arrive? Yeah.
that is, you really do need to be sure that someone is there to receive your pet. So even if it's not you, hopefully you have a contact. A plan B is a
Yeah.
really good thing to have there.
Have a plan B for everything is my advice.
Everything, 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 everything.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
keep a stash of cash. It doesn't have to be cash. It could be on your credit card. Make sure you've got something because there's always something that happens that you're not expecting to happen. And yeah, I always say, it's a plan B, isn't it? A cash plan B.
Yes.
So yes. Anything else we need to tell people about pets then?
Well, I mean, I think it's just about making sure that your pet is going to be in good health, and well, there are a couple of additional requirements about, transporting puppies or kittens. So making sure that they're old enough to have received all their vaccinations and be ready to travel, things like this.
Is there a
Um,
maximum age of dog that you can take?
there's not a maximum age, but of course, speak with your vet in case you feel like your dog is perhaps frail or won't make the trip well or something like this. Yeah.
Yeah, if it's 50 years old, just be careful. That would be a miracle, I know. But
Yeah, maybe a tortoise or something. I don't know.
yeah, a giant tortoise. They can last hundreds
Yeah,
of years.
exactly, exactly, exactly.
Wouldn't fit in the. It wouldn't fit underneath your seat in an airplane. Though.
Probably not. Most likely not.
There you go. Oh, let's just say hello to Scottish M3 on the. Is that the motorway you've named yourself after? There we go. So they are having a 2026 move from Scotland to Costa Blanca. One Irish passport and one UK passport. That'll help. You don't need a visa then. And he says also two Jack Russell Terriers. So presumably they're both smaller than 10k easily. Yeah, they can be quite small, can't they? So yeah, how are you intending to transport your dogs there?
Yeah, do you already have a plan?
Or are you waiting for us to tell you the alternatives there? I hope you've been watching since the start. Lovely. So we'll wait and see if you've got anything else to tell us about that. And for anybody else, if there's things that we've not mentioned about the pets, obviously we've just gone through it fairly briefly because we've got other subjects to talk about. But by all means, get in touch with Anna. Her details are in the video description. I'm also going to pin them to the top of the comments. So the very top comment will be very useful contact information, including Anna's details. And I also want to pass on some best wishes from our property and immigration lawyer friend, Charis, who's been offering a special offer to our viewers for the last few weeks, actually since before Christmas. And I think this is one of the very last weeks. I think there's one more week left after this one. And as a reminder of that, here's the little video that we made. And so see you in about 30 seconds. Lovely, lovely. Thank you, Charis. And her details, of course, are in the video description and in the comments as well. And don't forget, there's a QR code up there, as well as a super link in the video description below, where you can find the buymeacoffee.com link as well, and use the link to donate a cup of coffee, or 3 or 5 or 26, whatever you think today's show is worth to you. And by the way, if you found us because you were searching for moving to Spain or even removals to Spain, make sure that you're subscribed, because over the course of all of these videos we do cover every stage of the move, and also about living in Spain as well. Okay, let's continue then, Anna, and let's chat about moving you and your family over next. There's got to be some pitfalls and common mistakes and how to avoid them that you can tell us about.
Absolutely. Skatz, if you don't mind, before we get into it, I wanted to just quickly mention, kind of given actually what you just mentioned about assistance with, advice on all these different aspects of the move. I did want to properly just say, so at Start Abroad, one of the reasons that we're talking about all these different topics today is because we do help with all these different aspects of the move, right? Everything from assisting you with your pet, to figuring out your shipping strategy, to helping your family navigate the school registration process, to the visa and finding housing, of course, as well. So just to put that out there so people understand. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you for that.
Of course.
I was going to pop that in, but
sorry.
yes, you've done it. No, that's fine. This is just the perfect part in the program to tell everybody about that. 15 minutes in, and just before we get onto this topic of moving people,
Yes.
Is this easier than moving pets? I don't know. Is it?
Oh, goodness. Not if we're talking about kids, unfortunately, no.
Never
As you
worked
might
with children and
expect,
pets.
no.
Yeah.
Well, really the big thing when it comes to thinking about families, especially with school-age children, right? It's so much about timelines and, again, planning things far in advance just to make sure it all goes smoothly. The thing that I really like to chat about when it comes to families, pitfalls, is just thinking about your school registration in particular, right? So if you have kids, timing really matters for enrollment in schools. We have different options when it comes to different school types, and they have different enrollment windows. So, let's say if you're looking to public school, application window is usually spring, March to May, let's say, for a September start date for the school year. So this means you might need to apply earlier than you expect. For a lot of families moving, this doesn't necessarily work out with their timing for their move, because you also have to have certain documentation ready for public school enrollment. Most importantly, the padrón. So,
Oh,
so it gets a bit tricky with this, right? Oftentimes, what ends up happening with families is they might consider a different school type as a result. So, an international school, perhaps, or a private school where the enrollment is a bit more flexible, and they don't necessarily require the padrón or, the parents' NIE or TA at the beginning of this process. But in those cases, and especially for the international or private schools that are more in demand, the enrollment process can start almost an entire year in advance. So
wow.
think like October, November, before the actual September start date for the school year. So these are when, basically, I like to say, as soon as you have a sense of your move date, go ahead and start contacting the schools, right? Learn about their enrollment processes. If you want guidance on schools, right? The types of schools that might be right for your family, or, schools with great reputations that are welcoming to expat children who maybe don't yet speak the language, for example, in the lead up to your move, we're there to help you. Another really important thing to note, a couple of things just to be aware of when it comes to choosing schools. One is that depending on where you live, interestingly enough, the language of instruction, right? We often hear things about bilingual, for example. That can mean all manner of different things depending on the school. So you really have to check with the individual school. And in some places, bilingual doesn't necessarily mean the Spanish you might expect. So we have a lot of regional languages. So maybe your child is going to get some instruction in Catalan or Basque or Valenciano or something like this. So something you might not expect to be aware of there when it comes to language of instruction. So, and another thing that is just worth being aware of, we often work with families who are interested in maybe homeschooling their children, or for this transitional period might be, because, there's this challenge with some of the paperwork, and homeschooling is not formally recognized in school. Okay? So there are some workarounds that we can consider, like online international programs, for example, which is something to be well aware of as well as you're going into it and thinking about the best options for your kids and your family.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think everyone knows that homeschooling isn't allowed. That is very important. And yeah, I've known people who've come over and moved to Valencia, for example, and they didn't realise that in school their children are going to be expected to learn Valencian and Spanish, as well as being able to speak English.
Yeah, which might be great, but also just might be like oh my goodness, like I had no idea. So good to be aware of in advance.
Yeah, and although Valencian is quite like Catalan, which is not too far from Spanish, but Basque, on the other hand,
nope.
It's like trying to speak Welsh. I think it's or Greek or something. I don't know. The letters there's lots of X's in it that, I can't read Basque. It just doesn't seem to pronounce like. It certainly doesn't pronounce like English. So.
No, it's a completely different system, eh?
Yeah. I'll learn one day how you pronounce it, because I've never been up there except when passing through. Do they do that? Do they speak it in Bilbao?
Yeah. It's reminds me of one of those things like driving through Wales, for example, when I was living in the UK, and just trying to read the signs. I was like, I know how you pronounce the name of the place I'm going to, but I have no idea which of these places it is on this sign. How could I possibly say? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There's all the double L as well.
It
just doesn't sound right.
When you're not from around there, yeah.
Exactly. In North Wales, especially, there's an awful lot more Welsh spoken, and I used to go on holiday there, and so I learnt some of the names. But there's a place called what English people call Llandudno, which is actually Llandudno. And it just said the U isn't a U at all, it's more of an I, and the double
Yeah.
L is a and then there's that great big long place name, which is on the island just above North Wales, which has got, I don't know, there's a little railway station there with a 26-foot long sign, which has Llantfai Pwllgwingil go get a Chwindrobl Llantysilio go go goch on it. I learnt that when I was on holiday.
You clearly did learn that one. I'm impressed you remember it.
It took me a long time. I made sure I remember it. I go through it every now and then just to
Oh,
just for
amazing.
the hell of it, just to show off, really. But that's all I can say in Welsh.
Well, I am impressed, I will admit. Yes.
There you go. That's my job done for today. So I was going to ask, just mention something about timing actually.
Yes, sure.
In terms of school, there are various things that when you're talking about timing of when you're going to move, if you're moving in the summer, which would be a good time to move in terms of moving schools, because that might give you some other problems because you're coming into the hot months. It might be, if you move into the south of Spain, might be more uncomfortable to move, especially if you're driving through. But also that's when in August a lot of the admin closes down in Spain. So if you think about
Yes,
you're going to
absolutely.
arrive before school starts, then you might not get your padron. You might have problems with your NIE, getting your appointments and things like that. So timing that to arrive in the summer, and also if you decide to book your school place by coming over and checking out schools early in the year, those days, and you're planning to arrive after the beginning of July so that you don't have to pay capital gains tax on a house that you've sold in the UK, for example, then those days that you've come to speak to the school and you've gone on holiday, in the first half of the year, they count towards those 183 days. We were just talking about that on last week's show. So that can
Absolutely.
all affect this whole big bag of timing that you've got to negotiate.
It's so true. Yeah. I mean, when it comes to strategy, I really would call it that. Yeah. I mean, it's ideally you're planning far enough in advance that you can have a really clear strategy about what is the precise timing for all of these different parts of the move, whether it's selling your house or when you think you will get your visa approved in order to get the padron at the right time, in order to get the kids in school at the right time. It's complicated. There are lots of moving parts. And it only gets more so, I would argue, once you actually arrive in the country, right? Because that's when it's really go time often for a couple of different parts of this move. Primarily finding long-term accommodation, getting the padron, getting the TA, like these really critical logistical aspects. So yeah, I do think it makes sense to have a really clear plan laid out well in advance. That's one of the things that we really specialize in with our clients.
Excellent, yeah. And people do say that moving house is one of the most stressful things that you can do, but moving house to a foreign country must be 10 times more. I think the only thing more stressful is teaching teenagers. I think that was higher on the list than I can
Oh, is that
imagine.
really? I read a list somewhere where it was, most stressful life events. And it was like death of a family member followed by moving. That was like second on the list
Yeah.
after something like that. So it always sneaks up on you, I think, how stressful and difficult that can be. People expect, to just arrive and have everything feel normal, because if it does go smoothly, right, in terms of all the pieces falling into place with the strategy, etc., then it can be like, oh, I'm on this exciting new journey, but you always have to allow yourself some grace as well for just those emotions.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Oh, we had a reply from Scottish M3, which I've not read yet. They've got a large estate car with a roof box and the two dogs sitting in their baskets in comfort.
Lovely.
That sounds like a good way of doing it. Hopefully do it in 3 days. That
Uh-huh.
sounds fair enough to Costa Blanca. Yeah, because
Yeah,
it's
it sounds
one
reasonable.
day to get down. You can get down to the ferry, I think, in a day. Depends where you are in Scotland, I suppose. Then the ferry, then you're getting through France the next day to the south of France. And I suppose one of the things you have to do is check where you're staying overnight, that you've got a dog-friendly hotel. I'm sure you've thought about that. And yes, anything else that you can think of there? Any other advice?
Well, I suppose it's no, I mean, I think it's really just thinking about your entry points, and when you're planning it in 3 days, expecting it to take a little bit longer when it comes to just processing paperwork, showing the appropriate paperwork for the dogs. So just add a few hours there for that when you're thinking about your timing.
Yeah. And that's not
Um,
too bad if you're going over on a ferry, because there's usually regular ferries over. I don't know
that's
which
right.
port you're going from in England, whether it's Portsmouth or Southampton or whatever. I can't remember where they go from, but or Dover Calais you could go from as well, I suppose, which is an easier route. But yeah,
Sounds about right.
yeah.
Why don't we go back to some timelines? I was thinking about, when it comes to families, we shouldn't just talk about kids. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
lots of families of all different kinds, not just those with school-age children. So I do like to just maybe a couple of things about it. The other part when it comes to the timeline is the housing aspect that we haven't chatted about yet, and just how far in advance to plan, how many months of temporary accommodation to have before you're moving down, things like this. So, depending on where you move, right? The rental markets might go very quickly. Usually with our clients, we're talking about for your initial appointment, you need to show an address in Spain. So most often folks are renting temporary accommodation for somewhere between 1 to 3 months upon arrival. I do think that depending on your criteria and the location where you're moving, 1 month can sometimes be a bit tight, right? Just in terms of giving you adequate time to really do a full search of the rental market, have enough time to see good options that fit your criteria coming available in that market. And not be too stressed about things. Speaking of the emotional roller coaster of moving to a new country in particular, you don't want to
Yeah.
add any stress where you can cut it out during that time frame. So oftentimes, having a place for, let's say, 2 months, 3 months even, can be a really good strategy for making sure that you avoid some of that stress and you don't end up getting stuck into, let's say, a long-term rental that isn't everything that were hoping that it would be.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And if you're getting a visa, I suppose you do need to have something within 3 months to move into, so that you can get the padron at that address. So and get that sorted out. I mean, for us, my best advice in terms of finding a rental property was go and search in the place where you're going to be moving
Yes.
to. Ask the locals, ask the local estate agents. As very often at the house that you will actually get will not be on the market when you get there, and it won't be on websites. It won't be on the main websites. It'll probably just happen that you'll walk into the estate agents and they'll say, oh yeah, we've just got this one in, it's not been listed yet, or I know this farmer who's just wants to rent this other property off that they've got. So it's actually finding the place you want to live, that you're comfortable in, and that has all the amenities and the facilities that you need, is near enough to the airport so that your relatives can come and visit. It's not too isolated if you're the sort of person that's going to need to get to the doctors and get prescriptions from the chemist and all that kind of thing. So there's lots and lots of factors into that, but
And it becomes all the more important when you do have pets, right? For both the
yeah.
temporary and the long-term accommodation, because that limits your choices even further. So yes, I mean, absolutely. The way we basically do it with all of our clients is you're searching on the ground, right? So this is why you have that temporary accommodation for, like I mentioned, maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months. Let's say if you're in one of the more popular cities and your criteria are more specific, so you want to give yourself a little bit more time. Having that kind of midterm rental option can really just calm the nervous system. Also, for pets, allow them to settle into a place for more than a couple of weeks, so you're not moving and then moving immediately right again. That can just add a whole nother level of stress. So yeah.
Yeah. So we were stuck in a hotel for nearly a week with our dog
Oh,
after
Skatz.
after being on the boat for 30 hours or 32 hours before, and our dog didn't even go for a wee until right at the very end of being on the boat. She was just shaking because of the movement of the boat. So and then being stuck in a hotel room with very little space to walk in a city somewhere with lots of noisy things going on around her. And
Mm.
then we got to stay in a place for nearly a month that was a strange house, and she didn't, we took her for lots of walks when we got there, at least.
Yeah.
So, but the journey wasn't easy for her, I don't think. So, yeah, you're right. So once you need to be somewhere settled, and you need to look for a place. If you've got a big dog, you need a place with a garden where there's a fence and they can't get out, because
Mhm.
losing your dog at that point is going to be the most stressful thing. It's going to be that's going to be more stressful than anything else you've experienced in your life, I think.
I mean, I agree with you. Someone who's had some experience losing a dog in the past. I hope you haven't, but yes.
We have.
Oh,
One of the dogs we've got now, it was only a week after we got her in Ireland, and she accidentally touched an electric fence and just went rushing off. We were on a big, long beach. It was about a mile long, and she could have run along the beach, but she didn't. She ran into this field, which is what the fence was kind of protecting, but she went straight underneath the fence and into this marshland which was really boggy, and she didn't come back. She hadn't got recall at that point. She didn't know us well enough. We'd only had her for a week. And it was later, that was the morning, and we didn't. Somebody found her in the evening. We had loads of people out looking for her, and
wow.
eventually she was found, and somebody got a hold of her, and that was.
What
But
a
yeah,
relief.
but a
Yeah.
day
Well,
worth of panic, and I broke my car again on that point, because I went actually onto the beach, and onto this pebble beach, going like this, broke the axle on the car as well. So
oh
so
gosh.
that was an extra worry. So
Oh
yeah,
dear.
nightmare. You're getting so many
So, yeah.
bad stories from me and stuff, but
So
no,
don't
it
let
was
this happen to you, I guess. Yes.
yes, yeah. Don't
Make
keep a
sure we
hold of your
have
dog.
pet-friendly accommodation up front.
Yeah, absolutely. We can
Yeah.
laugh about it now. This is good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's get on to belongings now.
Yes.
I know you're not a removal company, and so you can't take people's luggage and belongings and everything, but you've got some general advice to give
Yes.
about that. There's your belongings. I mean, what belongings would you take in the car with you or on the
Mhm.
plane with you, and what
Mhm.
would you send in a removals company? Would you keep all your furniture? Would you keep all your electrical goods? Those kind of questions.
Oh
What can you
goodness.
tell us about that?
Well, I guess for that particular question, it is of course such a personal decision. But let me think about it, or present it this way. When we're working with clients, we often think about the categories you could fall into when it comes to moving your things, right? You have the folks who are just going to bring whatever they can carry with them on the plane, or let's say in the car. You have the folks who maybe have, lots of boxes of books, lots of just like personal effects, and they want to ship them because they don't want to have to worry about, managing all these boxes or bags on their own in the plane or in the car. But it's not like a full container load. And then you have the people who are truly moving the whole household, right? All the furniture. We're filling, let's say, a 20-foot container, or at least most of one. Perhaps even more, maybe a 40-foot. Maybe you're trying to move your car as well. So this is like, I'm moving all the things. I typically see it's pretty 50-50 in who we work with, which category you're going to fall into. If you are going to be earlier on in the, okay, I'm a minimalist. I am just going to move with basically the things I can strap on my back and bring along with me. And then I am going to replace those things. Maybe I'm moving into a fully furnished accommodation. Maybe I am, happy to buy new in Spain. It's just like, let's make this as little stuff as possible. If you're in that category, I think that's great. That's a fantastic category to be in. In that case, you really don't have to worry so much about customs, right? Because when you're bringing things yourself, bringing them on the plane or in your car with you, all personal effects, like let's not bring fancy new laptops in the box, please. But as long as everything is unpacked and clearly your personal belongings, you're not trying to resell anything, you're usually not going to run into hassle there, right? Like the paperwork load goes down. There's just simplicity in this case. So that's a great category to be in. Things that you should always bring on your person, regardless of which category you fall into. Medications. of course, right? Please try to bring a couple of extra months supply as well. Speak with your doctor in advance. Make sure you're not going to have to navigate the healthcare system in Spain to get your prescriptions immediately upon arrival. It's just more hassle than it's worth. So get some in advance. It's number one. I'd say, two, of course, all of your important paperwork. So please be sure any documents that you're bringing over for long-term storage, anything, very important, not just when it comes to your visa documentation, let's say, but also, I don't know, if you're bringing your children's birth certificates or, marriage certificates, things like this, just bring that all on your person, please. All these things are important. And then, of course, there are some things that if you ship them, they just are not going to be allowed through as easily. So anything that you think that, I don't know, we often have people who are like bringing supplements, anything that might run into issues with like natural products, right? Health-related products, things like that, that you don't necessarily want to ship. So bringing those things with you as well. So that's, okay, let's start on, that's kind of first category. If you are doing the middle category and you're bringing, let's say, a good number of boxes, maybe like 20 boxes, something like this, a bit too much for the car or the plane, then there are a couple of different things to think about here. Air freight is one. So we're often talking about, we think about these images of like shipping on a big shipping container or, in a big moving truck. Sometimes for the right size shipment, that doesn't even make sense. You can send it all via air freight and it can get to you very quickly, certainly within a week, maybe within a few days, which can work out rather well when it comes to things getting picked up at your door and then you move and then they arrive at your door again shortly after you do. So you can be there to send off and pick up, and that can work quite smoothly. So that's one thing to think about. And then we have okay, I'm going to send perhaps a large amount or perhaps like a less than a lorry full, less than a container load, let's say. And in those cases, this is where you're getting more into, okay, real customs paperwork aspects of things. Now, the good news for this is that you can send your things into Spain and avoid the taxes and the duties, the importation costs. If you are becoming a new resident and you are moving your household goods when transferring your residence. So this is when you're moving your primary residence to Spain. That is when you qualify for this for household goods. Okay. Okay. So basically, we need to just be sure that these are not new purchases of yours, and that the shipment is tied to your relocation to Spain. So, usually your shipping company will handle the customs paperwork, but you do have to create a very detailed inventory in these cases. And also the timing of the shipment needs to align with your residency process.
So it's a good idea, I suppose, if you're choosing a company, a removals company, to make sure that they know what they're doing. If you question them about customs and paperwork and that kind of thing, and if they're not quite sure, then maybe they're not the sort of people that you need to take your stuff.
Absolutely. And, we were actually just speaking about this before we started on this call, right? Because it is very common practice within the shipping company industry for them to outsource different parts of the process. Now, what I always say is specialize in someone who really knows the customs process for the importation side of things into Spain. So focus on a company that knows the Spanish side first, is what I would always recommend. Perhaps, they might outsource the pickup of your items in your home country. But as long as they really specialize on, okay, how are we going to get all these items through customs? That's quite important.
And if they're going to change company halfway, is that going to be a smooth process, or are they going to do what they did to ours and move it all into different boxes and repack it in not a very neat way? So.
Absolutely no. I mean, really what we're ideally looking for is someone who can take ownership and accountability for all aspects of the move from start to finish, and they are seeing what the entire process looks like. Yes.
Absolutely. There you go. So yeah, anything else about, moving your belongings? We've gone through quite a lot of it there.
Yeah, one question I very, very often get is about importing cars. And
Oh yeah, yeah.
is it worth it? This is
We've got because Chris from Upsticks,
yeah.
who's on every other week, he's part of his company is Upsticks Drive, so
Oh,
he registers
fantastic.
cars as well.
Okay, okay,
So
good.
yeah, so we've gone through that a lot. But I mean, you can give some general advice about that.
Sure. Well, maybe just very, very quickly. I mean, there's the question, the never to assume that it is going to be worth it at the outset, but just to consider it carefully. Oftentimes the answer may be no, it might not be worth it. The process certainly is much more complex than importing household goods. So that is important to know. And I know that we're largely speaking about UK, residents and nationals here, but for UK residents, it is a bit easier. If you are moving from, let's say, I don't know, US, Canada, places like this, it becomes more complex again because of the process to basically get the car adapted to the regulations in the EU. So another thing to be aware of. So always the top recommendation here is to get a full cost estimate before you make a final decision about whether or not you're going to import your car.
Yeah, and that estimate depends on the make of the car, how
Yes.
much has been, if there's been any modifications, because you need to get it back to what it said on the manufacturer's paperwork
Yes, yes,
in
yes.
the beginning, haven't you? Yeah, and it can vary a lot. I know the standard reply on Facebook and on social media when you look at it is, "Oh, cars are so much more expensive in Spain. It's much better to import it." But it depends on an awful lot of different things as well, and
It does indeed.
you can still get. I mean, cars don't rust here. Is a general piece of advice. They do obviously, but I've got a car that is now, what is it, a 2016 car, I think, and yeah, so 10 years old, or a 10-year-old car in England. I'd have one that's more recent than that, I think, but here it's still going perfectly well. It's not actually done that many kilometres because we don't travel a huge distance in it. We potter about in it down to the coast and back up the mountain. And, sometimes it's better to have an older car that's small and that you don't mind if it gets scratched on the tiny country cobbled streets, because it's going to get scratched. I've even scratched it myself once, but generally it's got scratches all over it now, and you see other cars driving you around and you think, yeah, that's been just battered, but still going after all these years.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I have bought certainly older cars than I would have in other contexts. But just recently actually got a car that is within the past 10 years. So who knows?
We did
Yeah.
our second car. Well, you call
Yeah.
it a second car, but it's
Yeah.
now the first car. My wife drives it, and it's a Jeep Renegade. So it's one of these Jeeps that's more like an SUV. And it's designed on a Fiat chassis and a Fiat engine, and so all of the parts are really, really cheap. You don't have to get them. All of the other Jeeps you have to send off to the US to
Yeah,
get the
that would be
parts,
a
and it costs
nightmare.
you a fortune. But these ones are all made in Europe. They're designed in America by Jeep, but but everything about them is European.
And that is such an important point too, as you're thinking about maybe importing your car or buying a car, try to get one where the parts are going to be readily available and where local mechanics are going to understand that car as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we do have friends who've got cars that are just they're American cars, in fact, and some of them are Jeeps, and it can cost them a fortune, even if it's an old one.
Or you just
So
might have to wait for months for parts, and yeah, that's no good.
yeah, or just be an engineer with your own workshop and you can make your own. But there's not many people around like that, I guess. And if you're a retired person moving, that's the last thing you want to be doing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're getting towards, well, we've only got, say, 10, 12 minutes to go before we're up to an hour. So what should we move on to? We've talked quite a lot about timing. We've talked about pets. We've talked about bringing yourself. We even talked about moving cars and your belongings. Any more differences that people from the US and Canada, for example, might experience when they're moving? And Australia,
Yeah.
I suppose that's an
Yeah.
even longer distance to transport.
Absolutely. Well, yes, I mean, from a shipping perspective, of course, you have to expect the timelines are going to be a bit longer. The costs will be a bit more expensive, just given the distance you're shipping items. So yes, I mean, I typically think, let's say if you're coming from North America, the transit times you would expect are over a month. Usually it's going to be more like 2 to 3 months, perhaps from very start to very finish, just to be conservative for you to know what to expect there. Also for the documentation side, they're going to be slightly different documents. When it comes to the cars, there is much more typically to do with this homologation process of getting your car adjusted to the EU standards. Sometimes it requires, especially emissions concerns, things like this, you need to pay attention to. The big one also, honestly, can be electrical compatibility, right?
Yeah.
At least coming from the UK, you can just have a little plug adapter on, your lamps, your kitchen appliances, whatever it may be. If you're coming from North America, or I often tell people, if it plugs into the wall, really give it a good second look, because unless it says very clearly on the item, this is dual voltage compatible, you're definitely at risk of spending a lot of money to bring something over, only to immediately have it spark out on you when you plug it in for the first
Yeah,
time.
you
Yeah.
definitely don't want that. I mean,
No, no.
I knew, for example, that there's certain computers, and I don't even have to name them because I've got all Apple products, but all of them can work in different countries. You can buy the separate. You can buy the lead separately, and that works perfectly well. But maybe other computers don't do that, and certainly fridges and freezers and things like that don't. I don't think.
Oh no, certainly not. And even like your little, I think one of the saddest experiences of my life was I was waiting for this delivery of a popcorn popper. This is very dramatic. Not one of the saddest experiences. I was very sad at the time. I think I was feeling homesick. I was shipped a lovely little popcorn popper that pops with air. I was so excited about it. I've been looking forward to it for weeks. I don't know what was I looking forward into in my life. Like I suppose I didn't have a lot else going on.
Yeah.
But anyway, I plugged it in and it immediately died straight away.
Oh.
And it was like, oh no, this thing I've been waiting for a month. Oh well.
Oh, what a shame.
So don't learn from my mistakes. Don't let that happen to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because popcorn, that's just one of the worst things to go wrong.
But yes, anyway, I think that those are probably, when it comes to shipping, those are the primary things to be aware of. I will also say for the pet relocation process, Canada, it's quite similar to the UK. In the US, the paperwork side of things also is a bit more challenging, because it's not just the vet that has to sign off on your health certificate. You also have to get it endorsed by the government. So there's an additional step there to be aware of.
Oh, okay. That's worth knowing. Yes, yeah. So I think the best advice to round up the show is, if you have any more questions and you want more details and you want more in-depth details, then do get in touch with Anna. Get in touch with Start Abroad. Her details are in the video description, and they're also they will be in the top comment. I can't actually do that until the show's over, so I'll do that straight afterwards. I've not done the time codes and the chapter headings yet, and that's not going to happen on this Monday evening because I'm going to have my dinner. That's so probably tomorrow morning that'll be there for you. So if you're watching back, sorry they're not there yet, but they will be. Most of you, when you watch it, it'll be several days later. So that is good. Make sure you smash the like button, and of course subscribe if you haven't already. And that does feel like a good place to wrap things up, unless you've got a pearl of wisdom to leave us with.
I mean, I would just say, it's when you're thinking about making a move like this to Spain, it's of course much more than booking the flight and getting the visa, right? It's about coordinating the pets, the shipping, the housing, the paperwork, all on one timeline. So I do think the people that have the smoothest relocations are the ones who start early, simplify what they bring, and build in a lot of buffer time. And if you want some professional support as well and making sure it all goes smoothly, happy to provide that.
Excellent. Lovely. Well, we've had a lovely chat, and yes, that does feel like a good place to wrap things up. Oh, we've got a question just coming at the last minute. How difficult is it to bring in music and recording equipment? Well, that's very relevant to me as a musician. Have you had any experience of that?
Yes, we have actually. Yes, a client that once shipped a container full of lots of specialty guitars and kind of, like what you were saying, Skatz, stuff that you want to be sure is treated really well. When we're dealing with specialty items like this, that's where it becomes even more important which shipping company you're working with. The same goes for artwork, actually, and that applies to a lot of people as well. The actual packaging of it really matters. And then you do want to be thoughtful about what you bring with you physically. If you're going on a plane, it can be a little bit more limited, of course, what you can bring, perhaps like as a carry-on, but physically versus to be packed and shipped. I would say, it mostly comes down to how are we packing it and making sure that it's going to be safe in transport, right? From a paperwork perspective, it's not particularly difficult. But curious if you have any personal experience also, Skatz.
I put all of my expensive stuff, including my iMac
Yeah.
that I'm speaking into now, in the car. Three
Mm-hmm.
very expensive guitars that we had at the time. They came with us in the car, and yeah, I wouldn't have had it any other way. But I put a lot of other musical equipment, including djembes, African drums, that kind of thing. They went in the on the removals van, and yes, I missed them. It was several weeks later when they arrived, but so it wasn't difficult for us because we went down in the car and over on the ferry. But you've got to be careful, I suppose. Is there any particular paperwork problems with those kind of? Is it just the expense of knowing the value and making sure everything's written down?
Yes, exactly. And, of course, when it comes to electronic equipment, like your recording equipment, the same kind of rules apply as when it comes to other electronics. We just want to be very clear that this is not something that is purchased new, that it's at least 6 months old, that, you're not bringing in so many, it looks like you might be trying to resell it or use it for business purposes, things like this.
Yes, and also I would do what my friend in Ireland did, which was get now I can't remember what this piece of equipment is called, but it plugs into the mains and it isolates and stops any spikes in electric getting through to your kit, and it also has a battery in it, so that if you're recording, if there's a power cut, it doesn't just shut down and you lose everything. It continues with a bit of power, so that you've got time to save everything and protects all of your equipment. So yeah, I do with that, certainly with music recording equipment, and probably a lot of other kit as well. And make sure you've got a property that's properly earthed. Get an electrician to check the wiring, because sometimes in rural properties, it doesn't have to be rural, but you get what used to be a farmhouse. You might not have the modern, up-to-date earthed electrics, and I worry about. I've got that. There's a bulb above me which has looks almost like bare wires. You can see the coloured wires coming down, and it's just hanging down there. And I've done nothing with it, but it's been all right for the nearly 5 years we've been here. But yeah, you do worry about things like that. So yeah, does that answer your question? I hope it does.
I think those are some great pieces of practical advice for recording equipment. Yeah.
Good. So if you've got any more questions, then, there's no time to ask them now live on the show. Put them in the comments below. And Anna, if you could keep checking back, that would be lovely if anybody asks you a question directly. Or just get in touch with Start Abroad directly. That would be lovely.
We do free 15-minute consultations. You can just sign up on our website if you'd like to get your questions answered.
Brilliant. So thank you to all of you for joining us. Whether you're here live or watching back afterwards, it wouldn't be the same without you. And let's all give a huge virtual kiss and a hug to our wonderful guest, Anna from Start Abroad. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you.
Great. And hopefully we'll see you again in the near future. You're welcome to come back on.
Thank you so much, Skatz. I really appreciate it. It's been lovely speaking with you today.
Excellent. You too. So bye for now.
Bye.
There we go. So what do we have next Monday live on YouTooSpain? Well, once again, I've mentioned Chris from Upsticks, and he's back. He's been off for a few weeks, and we'll be talking about the price of cheese. Yes, not just the price of cheese. The prices of everything in Spain are going up, especially fuel. So we're going to report on what's happening there and how let's call them the international troubles are affecting life here in Spain, and what to do maybe if you're in the process of moving here or if you're living here. So it's going to be the perfect place for you to join us on the live chat. We'll be as positive as possible about all of this, and we might be able to give you some hints and tips to save money. And make sure my wife went out today and panic bought some toilet roll. It was only like one extra pack that she bought. She said she's going to do some gentle panic buying over the next few weeks because, yeah, prices are going up. And anyway, make sure you join the YouTooSpain Facebook community group or the public page to make some comments, tell us what's been going on where you are, and leave your questions for us to chat about. And in the meantime, someone pass around the removals cookies and peas and fluff, my friends, and I'll leave you all with a message from the voices in my head here at YouTooSpain. Bye for now.
Wave goodbye, lads. Bye. Goodbye. Toodaloo. Peace and love. Peas and fluff. Oi, oi. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. One more cosmic dance? All right, then. Look, Mum, I'm dancing. Oh, I'm all a quiver. Let's dance.